Fantastic. Let's get started. I'm just going to pop in and say hello. And I want to welcome you to today's webinar. And I just want to go to this. Wonderful. And I hope that you can see both screens. And I will get my chat to show just in case anybody has any questions in chat. And you can also go to YouTube to watch this live as well. I'll admit you along the way. All right, so today it's no baking. It's just a few ingredients. And we're also going to talk a little bit about National Nutrition Month, which is March. It's March every year. And this year's theme is Fuel for the Future, which includes both environmental as well as health for yourself. So we're going to go over that in the midst of doing a bit of this preparation. I guess I should move my water bottle out of the way. I definitely did not drink enough water today, so I'm trying to get some of that in. Okay, so I think both images are pinned, so you should see both of them. So the recipe that we are making today is a tofu chocolate or chocolate tofu mousse. And one of my coworkers was goofing around with the name, and we came up with Tofusse. So it's kind of like mousse, but Tofusse. And it's actually better than what you think it's going to be. So the ingredients are some cashews that have been soaked in water, and that helps with a little bit of better absorption. We have dark chocolate chips. They're 72%. We have, if you look at it, it's about 400 grams, which is about a cup and a half. And then we have silken tofu, and we're going to talk a little bit about the different types of tofu. But for this recipe, we're using the silken tofu, which is more of the Japanese style, and it's really soft. And you can get it either in water or aseptic packaging that doesn't need to be refrigerated. We're going to put a little bit of a crumbly bottom on the bottom of our mousse. We have some walnuts, we have some graham crackers, and we're just going to crush those together. But before we do that, what we're going to do is work on melting those chocolate chips. I'm going to use the microwave. You can also do it in a double boiler on the stovetop. So I recommend doing it in 30-second increments so that it doesn't overmelt and start to burn or anything like that. And then mix it in between, because if you mix it, you'll see what's melted, what's not, and sometimes you can stop right before everything's melted to do that. All right. And the great thing about this recipe is everything just goes into a food processor or a blender, whichever it is that you have. Oops, there's the first 30 seconds. You take it. Not much is melted yet. So we'll go for, I think I'm going to cheat. I'm going to do 45 seconds. Oops. Gotta watch it because I accidentally hit 4 minutes. So what I'm going to do is I am going to show you a little bit about the different types of tofu. And did you know that it takes 1,800 gallons of water to produce 1 pound of beef? It takes about 600 gallons of water for 1 pound of beans. So it is definitely better for the environment to be more plant-based and eat more vegetables. You can see how soft this tofu is with cutting it and looking at it. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the other different. That's been a little bit more than 45 seconds. Oops, and there goes a camera. We're going to stir and, oh, if the camera was up, try that again. All right. So you can see that the chocolate is starting to melt. So we'll just give it a good stir. And a second spatula to kind of scrape some of it down. Fine. Put it back in there for another 30 seconds. Another type of tofu that you can get, this is one of my favorites, it's a baked tofu. And you can see that it has a little bit of the seasoning in it, but it's much firmer. And so I'm going to cut this open to show you what this one looks like inside. Mm-hmm. So you'll see with the baked tofu, it's much firmer and much denser. Than the silken tofu. You gotta stir. Oh, look at that. It is melted enough because whatever's not melted will melt with the heat of the already melted chocolate. So I'm just going to set this aside so we can finish our tofu talk. So this has a better texture. I think it's not as slimy and it's good. And then we have the normal tofu, like a firm tofu. This is more of the Chinese style. And it's very similar to the baked tofu. I just don't want to get the liquid all over the place. And so you can drain it, and there are a couple of different ways in which you can drain it. And you'll see that this is a very firm tofu, like the baked tofu. And so these are some of the ways in which you can get tofu. Another soy product is the tempeh. And what's nice about tempeh is that tempeh is fermented. And as we've talked about in different webinars, the fermented foods are good probiotics. So that's where we get our healthy gut microbiota. And this has a totally different taste. I find it a little bit nutty, and the texture is totally different from tofu. I don't even know how to explain it. Someone knows how to explain the texture of tempeh, please put it in the chat box. What I do with these, if you're not sure how to cook them, one of the things that I do is I'll just slice them into pieces and then put like barbecue sauce or buffalo wing sauce on them and just bake them in the oven at 350 degrees until they're done, or put them in a pan and let them soak up the marinade. And so that's what I'll do as a quick way to get some tempeh or tofu. All right. There's also TVP, which is dried up tofu. I used it in my chili and I ran out, but it's a good way to get a little bit of the ground beef texture in. All right. Any questions about tofu before I move on? Let me check if anybody has any questions on YouTube. Oh, it doesn't look like anybody has any questions. All right. So let's get our little crust ready. So all you need to do with the nuts and the graham crackers. You can put them in the food processor. It all depends on how fine you want them. I don't really care about them being all that fine. So I can just put them in a into a plastic bag or whatever else that you have. And you can just get your rolling pin, I'm grabbing right now, maybe. You know, I can't find my rolling pin, but what I do have is a canister for my soda stream. So that or something else, just pound it a bit. Get the aggression of the day out. Probably not the smartest thing doing it with compressed gas, but as long as I don't pound and I roll, it should be okay. And you can make this as fine or as crumbly as you want. Get some of those nuts. All right, let's see what we have. So if we look inside, we've got some crumbs, little crunchy still, but I'm fine with that. I'm just going to set that aside now. Oh, what we can do is instead of setting them aside, I am just going to reuse the bowls that I have them in and just put a couple handfuls in, a couple tablespoons, and then you can press it down in a little bit. If you wanted to use some butter or coconut oil to kind of keep it together a little bit more, you can, but it'll also be held down with the mousse when we put it in there. All right, so I'm going to set these aside now. And I am going to drain my cashews. As I said, the cashews have a little bit better absorption when we soak them in the water. And then with the silken tofu, you can see that it does have some liquid in it. I recommend that you drain the liquid, but I don't think that you need to put it on some paper towels or over a colander to get more of the liquid out. You can, if you want, I'm going to just move this more to the limelight. You can put it in a strainer to get more of the water out, but then it's going to result in a bit of a thicker pudding. If you leave a little bit of the water in, then it makes it a little bit more pudding-like. And I found that when I strained the water, it actually made it a little bit thicker, almost like a fudge. So that's up to you. We've got the tofu in there. We're going to add the cashews. That's about 1/3 of a cup of cashews. And then we're going to take our chocolate and just pour that in there. I don't add any sugar because even with the dark chocolate, I think it's sweet enough. If you want to add a little bit of maple syrup or agave, you can do that. The one thing I am going to add, though, because I add it to just about everything, is my vanilla. You can add cinnamon and cayenne pepper and make it a little bit more of like the Mexican hot chocolate recipe that I have. Gives it a little bit of kick. You could put a little bit of a pinch of salt in that. This is very, very crooked. It's one of those days. It's one of those days that I'm having today, right from the get-go. And I think we're just going to stay crooked so it doesn't fall again. And I have my interns watching, and they're probably like, oh my God, this woman is crazy. And we all know that that's a little bit true. All right. So we've got that in there. Oh, and why not? We're going to put a little bit of that cinnamon in there. It's completely optional, but I'm going to throw a little bit of cinnamon. And then I'm also going to do a touch of chipotle pepper powder to give it a little bit of a kick. Just a little bit, because you can always add more, but you can't take it away. All right. Let me get our food processor ready. This food processor was given to me by my friend Kern McNutt when I lived in San Francisco, probably about 25 years ago. And I don't even know how long he had it before he gave it to me. So it's a pretty amazing machine. Had to get some replacement plastic parts, but that's about it. All right, here we go. I'm gonna let it go on for about 30 seconds. Oops, I forgot I gotta hold it down. No. The replacement parts don't fit perfectly, but good enough. You can see, I'm just going to go through and you can see on the side camera about scraping the sides. You want to make sure that that chocolate's getting nice and mixed in. And we want to try to make this as smooth as we possibly can. We have the tofu and the nuts that we need to smooth out. I found that if I pureed the tofu first, it really didn't make that much of a difference. So, and then I'm concerned a little bit about over whipping it and what if that could have any detrimental effects. So again, look at how fluffy it is. So you can eat it like this right now, but it'll thicken up in the fridge and it continues to thicken for the more time that it spends in the fridge. You can also freeze it. That's another option of what you can do to it to have it keep longer. But if you were to keep it in the fridge, I would use it within 3 to 4 days. All right, I'm just mixing around because there's still some chocolate down there at the bottom. I'm just trying to get as much of it up as I can. All right, so I'm just going to scoop some of it out and put it in the dish. If you put about a half a cup, it should give you about 4 servings. It's pretty rich, so I don't even think that you need to fill it up all that much. You can see here in the one bowl, let me put it here, that I only filled it up a little bit because, like I said, it was very rich when I made it before, and it was a little bit too much if you had more than half a cup in there. And what you can do once you have it set and you're ready to serve it. Of course, I've got one that I made a little bit earlier, and you can see that it is set and it's quite a bit thicker because you can see how this one falls off the spoon because it hasn't really set, but this one sticks on the spoon more like a mousse. I put some raspberries on there because I found the tartness was wonderful in cutting a little bit of the sweetness and the thickness. And another thing that you can do is add a little bit of whipped cream, whether it be dairy or there's also like a coconut whipped cream. And I found that a little bit of whipped cream on there as well was quite nice. Now, of course, we cannot end the segment without me tasting it, so you know that it is good. Oh, let's see. We'll put this. Oh my, trying to figure out a good angle. And I guess that this is going to be about it. All right, here we go. The one that I just tasted now is with the cinnamon and a little bit of the chipotle pepper. Super nice. All right. Creamy, rich, chocolatey, very smooth, and very delicious. I highly recommend you make this. And I do want to give a shout out to one of my interns, Claire. She's the one who gave me this recipe and introduced me to it. And then I was playing around with it and made some changes to it. And we've got this. I want to wish you a wonderful month and a happy National Nutrition Month. Please reach out to me, your registered dietitian nutritionist, so we can make sure that you get the individualized care that you need so you can be your happiest, healthiest self. I want to thank you so much for partaking in our chocolate tofusse. And next month, we are going to have a very interesting webinar that's going to be co-hosted by one of my interns. And for those of you who know me, probably shocked that this is actually a webinar that I'm going to be doing, but it has to do with nutrition and THC and CBD and how that all interacts. So stay tuned for that. Please take a look in your newsletter that the webinar links or the Zoom passcodes have changed. And for those of you on YouTube who need to reach out to me, please reach out to Karen at epicurenutrition.net and I will get you all the information that you need. Thank you very much. And once again, I wish you a happy, healthy life. And let me know how I can help you. Be well. Oh, what type of tofu? I forgot to look at what questions were asked. I use silken tofu, but you can use any kind of tofu you want. You're just going to get a different texture based upon the tofu that you use. Oh, and let me upload the recipe to no, screenshot. There we go. So there's a PDF of it in the Zoom chat box. And once again, for those of you on YouTube, you will just need to email me at Karen@epicurenutrition.net to get your copy. So long, be well, and thank you for being a part of Epicure Nutrition.